Welcome everybody to the Bangers and Classics podcast with me, James Rupper, and him, David Malloy. And despite all predictions, we are still going into a new decade, of course, as we pointed out last week. And I just wonder what David's been up to in this new times.
Well, happy 1980, first of all,
Yeah,
James.
absolutely. Yeah, happy 1980 to you.
Yeah, so I've not been up to much. I've been keeping my head down, ducking, diving, bobbing and weaving, and starting work in a new book whilst work continues on the EV.
Yeah.
Although it's actually finished, but it's still where it shouldn't be at the moment, but we'll worry about that another time. So I've not really been doing much. I haven't been out very much, just locally. Mm-hmm. So I've not really seen much. I saw one classic car, but it's one I've seen several times. It was a scruffy 1973 Beetle with the primer and various shades of red paint on it. That was sitting in its usual place, but this time there was someone in the driver's seat. It wasn't moving, but I suspect it's a chap who works in the fast food place that owns it.
I've actually been in a few bangers just recently. Our friend's Volvo 850, which has been quite, it's essentially a very large dog car because they've got very large dogs. And that's quite a remarkable, comfortably, vehicle. You can get a lot in it. It does very hard work. And it's rather a joy. It's a 2.5 petrol. The engine will never die. Well, it shouldn't do really. Automatic gearbox, and it sort of goes on and on. And also, they've recently acquired a Honda Civic 04 plate, which again is the last word in reliability. It's when the Honda Civic still looked like a boring car, and they are extremely good. So it was very, very good to be knocking about in those, which I think we would all agree are bangers. I think the Volvo is a 1999 one, so it's just about the old shape. Apart from that, actually, very excitingly, I see Land Rovers all the time, and I don't want to bore people with Land Rovers, but I did see a 2A 109-inch pickup. So that was such a rare thing to see, and that was quite interesting. And it was very quiet as it sailed by, actually, which was even more exciting. But it was, again, it looked like it was one that was actually used for the purpose for which it was designed. And then within minutes, I saw a much more recent 90 with two people on board, and they gave me a cheery wave. They looked like husband and wife, and they waved at an old man with a beard in a Series 3. So that was the only reason I think they waved at me. But it was a 90 hardtop commercial like mine, van type thing. But again, it's being used. And that's what we like to see. We like seeing cars being taken out and about and being used for the purpose for which they're intended. So that's been my spots.
So you say the first one you saw, it was a couple who looked cheery, and you thought they were husband and wife. Yeah, do those two things go together? That's what I want to know.
Well, maybe it's the first flush of their relationship. You don't know, but as we know, David, behind every man, there's a rather greater woman keeping us all, in shape.
You speak for yourself. Behind this man is a woman with a very large brush.
Really?
Yes. And a quiet Land Rover. That's the other thing.
It was really, it could have had the old overdrive gearbox on, so that was the thing, even though it was going into town. So but it was almost whispering by, so it was quite
controversial opinion here. Could it have been an electric conversion?
No, it's not. No, I've already had my day spoilt, David, because completely by accident, the local news was on, and I stopped because on the screen was a mini bit, a bit like mine. It was a Mini Cooper, and it had been restored. And I thought, I know what the punchline is going to be. It's somebody spent £80,000 converting their Mini Cooper S to electric travel, and he can do it because it's his. I don't care. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a car ruined.
But in fairness, James, it's so light you could run them on AAA batteries.
Yeah, but it's just it's it's a car that really doesn't need it. It's completely and utterly pointless. But there you go. I mean, I just knew that there was going to be an agenda there. They weren't just going to say, "Oh, isn't it great that there's another Mini Cooper back on the road?" No, it's electric. So it's just people know my views and your views on it, and that we're not anti-electric at all. But where it's appropriate, and for some things it suits, but paying £80,000 to convert a Mini is just the height of stupidity, as far as I'm concerned. Really, he just could have given us the money, and we'd have spent it wisely, or even
unwisely. In my case,
yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably bought something daft with it now.
Yeah.
But not to worry about that. I mean, the other possibility with the Land Rover is I did wonder if you earmuffs on, that was all.
Could have been, absolutely. Yeah. I do. I do wear those in this weather. It was very, very cold today. I don't know if it's cold up your way, David, but it was sub-zero, ice on the ground, scraping the window this morning. So
it's actually quite sunny. I'm just looking out the window now. Nice blue sky. But yeah, it is cold. It's not a cloud blanket, of course, when it's sunny.
Yeah,
you don't get the cloud blanket, and of course temperatures plummet at night. So you can't have it always, unfortunately. It's like,
I didn't realise we're now doing weather forecasts and predictions, and but I suppose that's good. We've got to get listeners tuning in for something, haven't we?
Of course, yes. I mean, the baking section and the gardening section of the show didn't really work at all.
No,
I mean, my recipe to make rock cakes using real rocks wasn't a success, sadly. Not to worry. Any news, James? Any news apart from taking umbrage at your local TV station?
Not really. I think the only other thing I've been meaning to mention is that I've got to look at my old diary from last year, my 1979 diary, David, because I have to get that to remind myself of something that I think I've been meaning to mention a diary which I wouldn't want people to think that I'm a cheapskate or anything, but this is a diary with certainly the wrong dates in it that we've actually crossed out and modified.
There's a secret diary of James Rocket, age 12 and a half.
That's right, yeah. In order to make a 1979 diary work, you have to cross things out in it and change the dates. And it's so well organised that I cannot find it, because and also it's one of those ones which is what they call they're called academic year diaries. So it's actually a split as well. So it's like half and half, and so you go halfway through the year, and then suddenly you have to go backwards depending on where you're starting from. And obviously I've started at the wrong point. But there you go. I think I spoke to the Association of Heritage Engineers, although I can't find their complete title. I spoke to a very nice chap there called Gary a couple of weeks ago, and they're sort of on our side actually when it comes to recycling and keeping classics going and not throwing stuff away and all that. So their sort of point of view has been quite interesting. And actually, one of the things they mentioned as we're on the electric car thing is that they do think that you should have a Q plate if you're mad enough to go and convert your classic to electricity, because he said to me that might put a few people off, which it may well do, which is I think quite clever, because you're changing what the vehicle is. So it's a brand new vehicle, then it should be given a Q plate. So we can only hope that they're lobbying of Parliament, because they do seem to be able to lobby MPs and stuff. But otherwise, they are on board with let's keep cars going. Yes, cars are under attack. We've got to defend them. So yeah, they are people on our side, and maybe I'll put a link in the description or something when we do it. But I think it was the Association of Classic and Heritage Engineers. But we'll do that. I can't find all I can find in my old diary is ring David, send money to David. It's all about you, David, in my diary.
Oh no, it's all about Hammer horror actresses. Be honest.
Yeah. Well, it could be.
Yeah, talking of which, or talking of whom, any word?
No, of course not. No, they've got more important things to do, and I'm sure she had a very nice Christmas, old Caroline, and she got far better things to do. But at least if I took a Mini Cooper to her door, it would be a proper one, not one that has, as you say, AAA batteries.
I think you should take the Innocenti anyway if you get the chance.
Yeah, could do.
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. I did give that a clean this morning actually, because I've been cutting a load of stuff up in the garage, and obviously, I used to have things that I covered cars with, and then I just got bored with them, and
you cut those up as well.
And I must have cut those up completely. But no, I mean, I've been a very, very bad person in that there was a lot of dust on my cars, so I thought I'd better clean them.
This is going back to your old football days when you were called Chopper Ruppert.
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
Yeah, it might be the Monty Python sketch about Chopper Socrates.
Yeah.
Remember the philosopher's football match?
That's right. Yeah, Chopper Socrates. There you go.
Yeah, well, if you watch Bill and Ted, absolutely easy. Yes, inspired. Absolutely inspired. Anyway, I think on that somewhat philosophical note, let's take a break.
That's more than enough.
You're listening to Bangers and Classics, the motoring podcast that's presented by a couple of MOT-exempt geezers. So we're back after the break, and we're getting very settled into this business of being in 1980, I have to say. And we're going to look at a car from a few years ago, James. 1975. It's the AMC Pacer. Even just 5 years on, as it now is it a banger or a classic? Looking in my crystal ball, some years hence, it will appear in a film called Wayne's World.
Oh, right.
Yes, it's Wayne Campbell's car. There's, I believe, a licorice dispenser in the roof or something like that.
Oh, right.
In their version. But when it's introduced in 1975, it doesn't look like a traditional American car. It's a two-box car. It's very wide. It's very glassy. And it's almost like a sort of ovoid shape. Initially, it appealed because it didn't look like your traditional American car. The theory was it was a bit smaller, easier to drive, and they meant it to be more economical as well, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Came to the UK the following year in 1976, and get this, and we're not kidding about this, folks, from 3.8 litres of petrol power, it produced 90 horsepower. There was a version which had 4.2 litres, and guess how many bhp it produced? All of 95. There was a V8 version that came along later, wasn't that much quicker. So it was very slow. It was 0 to 60 in about 14.5 seconds. Couldn't flat out hit 100 miles an hour. The problem was it was heavy. There was so much glass in it for one thing. It was very, very heavy indeed, which made it thirsty. It was converted to right-hand drive when it was brought to the UK. There was an aftermarket, shall we say, conversion. It was the importers arranged it, and it wasn't a great conversion. So anyway, that's the background to it. Do you remember the Pacer, and what do you think of it?
Well, David, I always, at times like this, I turn to the standard catalogue of American cars for all my information here, which is actually chock full of it, because it was actually Business Week at the time called it. It was the hottest car of 1975. I don't know whether it overheated or anything, but that's what it was. And as you say, it was actually promoted as the first wide small car, which is a very curious way of marketing anything, really. But yeah, for an American car, it wasn't really very American carish at all. I rather like it. I think it's sort of quite a charming little thing, really. And you did used to see them very occasionally. As you say, they were very rarely imported, but they did exist. And it's just one of those curiosities that, in a way, we should be grateful for. In a quite a dreary, boring world, at least they were doing something a bit different. I think the glass area was something. It was about 35% of the car, so it was, there was no problem seeing out at all. But as you say, it made the car rather heavy. But I think it had quite a lot going for it. And obviously, being an American car, you could buy it with so many options that, it just sort of defies belief, really. X-Packs and all sorts of things. And it wasn't brilliant, but to look at it, it was an American car that dared to be different. And there was the station wagon, unbelievably, version of it as well, wasn't there? It didn't really make a huge amount of difference, really. But they put a little extension on the back. It's curious to think how much different it actually made it from the liftback version. But there it was. So yeah, I'm actually quite happy about it. And I think you could get wooden trim down the side, sort of faux wooden trim, obviously not real wooden trim. But yeah, it's a laugh, isn't it? And obviously that's the reason why it was in Wayne's World, really, which rehabilitated it pretty much. It's a tiny bit like the DeLorean, I suppose, made famous by a film, really, when in reality it didn't have a particularly good time.
No, I mean, it didn't have a great time. It sold well at first.
Yeah.
You were saying, James, about being the hottest car of
It
1975.
was.
Well, with that glass area, it would be the hottest car of most years in warm climates. That would be the problem. And I'm told that visibility in some respects wasn't as good as you'd expect it to be.
Really? Oh,
No,
no.
that's what they say.
Yeah.
However, there were some good things about it. It had rack and pinion steering. Now, you might
Yeah.
think, so what? But in 1975, that was a rarity in an American-built car. Obviously, the interior is very airy. It rode pretty well, pretty safe handling, and of course, it looked like nothing else on the road.
Yeah.
Reality is, it was an interesting idea. It was quite a good idea, and AMC was the smallest of the big four producers in America, and they couldn't invest the amount of money into R&D that the big three could. They were always very firmly in fourth place, and they basically lost their shirt in this one, which is a real shame, as I say, because with a better engine and with it being lighter, if they'd shaved some of the weight off, it didn't need to be quite as wide because it actually wasn't as space efficient as they'd hoped. They kind of got that a little bit wrong. But the idea of producing a car that was smaller, that looked different, and had some interesting technical things in it was a sound one. And it wasn't what it could have been or should have been or needed to be for AMC, but it's an interesting effort. And something about it I like. Something about it I've always liked. I don't know if I could face owning one, if I'm being honest about it, but I'm glad it exists. So I'm going to give it a thumbs up. It's a classic.
Yeah. No, I'm all on board with that, David. That's pretty good. I think we should go and buy one for our road tour.
Well, prices are pretty stable. They're not cheap nowadays. You can you can pay 30 grand for a good one. I think it's gone past the banger stage.
Yeah,
it's no longer really a banger. It's now an idiosyncratic classic, and that's how the market sees it anyway. That'll be a fair comment. That's how I see it as well.
Yeah,
it's an idiosyncratic, quirky car, but it's a classic. So, yeah, we'll move on from that one. Nice to be able to agree on one for a change these days. No, but here's one where we're going to be at each other's throats.
Oh, are we?
It's the Kenny Challenge.
Oh, dear.
Now, Kenny got in touch via YouTube and gave us a challenge. Kenny's influence in bangers and classics does not wane.
No, it doesn't.
He's come up with this challenge for us, and that is to find the cheapest set of wheels we can, presumably means a car, that runs and has at least a month remaining on its current MOT. And as usual, I expect to get absolutely trounced. I've got a white flag flying here already.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not that easy. It really is. Unless you know someone who's giving a car away, it is actually quite difficult to buy really cheap cars. Certainly cars that work that are really cheap.
Well, this is where you get all the advantages. You know everybody.
Well, I wouldn't say that, no.
You probably know Sunglasses Ron even. He's bound to have something for sale. I know. Oh, it's on there. It's caught a monkey, mate. Yeah.
Well, my local garage is quite good because they do occasionally get customers who just say, "Well, you can keep it." So
have it.
So they do. You can have that, mate, because I'm not driving that anymore. So even though they don't actually sell cars anymore, but I know they do have cars that come to them freely. But that's one of the advantages of being in the business if you're in that all day long. But I'm very intrigued to see what you came up with, David. Because I'm sure it's not as bad as you think.
It was on Facebook Marketplace, if it's still there. It was a 1998 Ford Fiesta. Now, it says it's done 28,000 miles. The MOT records, certainly going back to 2006, seem to bear that out. So 1.2 with a Z-Tech engine. It's got automatic transmission. It's silver with a blue interior, petrol engine, and has got an MOT for another couple of months to the 2nd of March. There's various little things that come up in the MOT history over the years. Nothing major, I don't think. I mean, there's a little bit of corrosion here and there. There's an advisory last time round for the offside rear wheel arch being corroded. Things like rear tyres, front registration plate, brake pipes, and the exhaust leak that I believe has now been sorted out. This is £300. And for a 28,000 mile car, if it's genuine,
Hmm.
and it seems to be, I don't think that's too bad a deal. You're not going to get cars cheaper than that unless you happen to know somebody that's word of mouth, because scrap prices have gone up.
Hmm.
And people are now weighing their cars into scrap dealers rather than selling them privately.
No, that's right. No, that's a very good buy, I think you got there, Dave.
But you've beaten it.
Oh no, well, I haven't really. No, I looked at a couple of cars like you did, and one of the websites which is very, very dangerous to go on is the Copart website. They're the people who break cars up. I believe they're the largest. They're certainly the largest in the UK, as far as I know. Copart.co.uk.
They're an American company, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they are.
Yeah.
But they seem to have sort of cornered the market pretty much. All the cars seem to go there when they're written off or whatever. But it's quite interesting to have a look on there because you can bid on the cars that they have, and they do set a minimum bid. And if you're the only person who's bidded, then you make your arrangements and go and get it. So it is possible to start sort of quite low. So the reason why I can't submit this one, it was a 2012 Chevrolet Spark, so that's a little tiny thing. All it had. It was like stolen recovered. It just had some front end damage, and you could see that quite clearly from the photographs. There were no bids on it, but you had to bid £300 to buy it. So, but it was 9 days away, I think, the final day. So I couldn't really say that I'd found a car that from 2012 for 300 quid, unfortunately. But if you were lucky, and it's quite easy to register on their site, you can do that. They're quite open about all the levels of category. You really want to aim for the ones which really don't have very much damage at all, which don't require them to be inspected or anything to get back on the road, unless you have the facilities to do that. But to buy a car with a scratch and a few dents, and with this one, the damage was really very, very minor, and I'm sure someone will pay more than £300 for it. So what I ended up, what I would have bought is £350 worth of VW Polo. It's one of those victims of the ultra low emission zone, in that people really want to get shot of their car because they're just not going to be able to run it anymore because they've bought a replacement which allows them to run it where they live. So it's a distress sale. That usually means if you turn up, you could probably get it for less. But I like the VW Polo. It's a 1.4 SE. I like those in particular. It's a 4-cylinder engine. A lot of people say, oh, you want a 1.2, but you don't. It's only 3 cylinders, and they do start to clatter once the mileage builds up. But this is a proper family car because, again, like you, I looked at the MOT history, and the MOT history was extremely good. It has no advisories, and the MOT actually runs out August next year. So it will run for a very long time. So yeah, if I was going to buy a car that was very, very cheap, I'd buy that one because it seems to be very looked after by the family owner. So,
right. What colour is it?
Oh, I don't know. It's like I don't know. It was just like colour. It didn't. It was probably either black or blue. I couldn't really tell. I looked at the pictures. 80,000 miles. So 1.4 SE. So yeah, that would suit me.
Right.
I tried to find cars as local to me as possible as well. That was one thing I thought. Well, if I'm going to buy a cheap car, there's no point, going to where David lives, unless David was going to go and buy it for me. So I was trying as much as possible to find a local cars, but that's as local as I got with London.
Right, jolly good. Well, what we'll do is we'll ask Kenny to determine the winner of this one.
Well, I'm sure Kenny will do the right thing and say, well done, David.
Oh, I'm sure he won't. I'm sure you'll say, and you'll do the right thing by saying, well done, you. You've got a newer car than it's got a longer MOT. So there we go. But Kenny's the jury. And on that note, let's take another break. This is Bangers and Classics, quite probably the lowest 5 podcast in the universe. And now that we're back from the break, we're going to take the highway to the danger zone with our very own Top Gun, James Ruppert. And James, this week's Danger Mobile is a car that I'm surprised to find in danger of extinction. It's the Citroen Bx. At one time in the UK, there were well over 180,000 of these on the road. And at the last DVLA count were 246. That's pretty serious, and numbers are falling year on year.
Well, I was quite astonished when you told me how few there were, really, because it's always been sort of one of nature's survivors, really. Even though they can be a bit complex and a bit involved. But I used to see one actually, and it is true. I haven't seen it for a bit, but it used to be around here, and it was an estate, and I think it was really basic estate as well. It was on a J plate, and that was always doing work and shopping, and I haven't seen it for a bit, so they might have part exchanged it for something. I think it's just an old car, and that's the tragic thing about it. People think, oh, it's about time I updated it, even though it's probably been doing sterling service for the last 20, 30 years.
Mm.
But I had no idea. And you do a great public service there, David, by, herring around the country and counting all the ones that you see. But yeah, I just didn't realize that there were hardly any left. It's really quite shocking because, again, for people of our age, it was a current car and you saw them everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, this business of hearing around and counting them is difficult because I've got to take a whole bunch of people with me.
Yeah.
So I can use their fingers and toes to count on.
Exactly.
But I can only go up to 20 in mine, so that's a bit of a problem. But yeah, I mean, we're down to very low numbers, and they are nice cars.
Yes.
Obviously, designed by Bertone, Marcello Gandini.
Yeah.
And they look like a Bertone car. They really do. And they're pretty roomy. You would say that, a little bit idiosyncratic. Never really went with the flow in terms of styling back in the day. And because of that, I think they've actually dated very well.
Yes.
Better than many cars of that era. The dashboard in early models was wonderful. Even though Citroen was now part of Peugeot's empire at the point that BX was conceived and came into production, it really still looked like an old-style Citroen. It was suitably quirky. Some people don't like the word quirky and Citroen to be associated together. They'll say, well, they're different, they're idiosyncratic. Well, yeah, but for me, I don't think quirky is a bad thing.
Yeah.
In this context especially, you might want to call it idiosyncratic. Either way, I like it, and it was good. And of course, you had a hydro pneumatic suspension, which was brilliant. And then, of course, you had that lovely advert with Marcello Gandini driving to his workplace in a black Citroen Bx 16-valve GTI, which is a very nice car indeed, let me tell you. I have to say, I would have liked one of those, and I still would. Still a very nice car. There's not really much I can say against the Bx. I mean, it might be a little bit more complicated in terms of its suspension than some other cars.
Yeah.
But you do get a magic carpet ride quality in rough roads. It really does ride wonderfully well. And they are very nice to drive. They're not the last word in sportiness, the last word in performance. The 16-valve GTI is pretty quick though. But they're just a good, competent car that's got some individual flair. And I think it would be a tragedy if we lost them. And with numbers falling, probably won't be more in a few years now before we're down to fewer than 100, unless things change and people start to save these cars. They're not too expensive yet. You can still pick one up for sensible money. If you're looking for a good classic car, something you can use as a family car for outings, for going places, for classic car shows, run down to the seaside, ice cream run, fish and chip run, whatever. It's a great little car, and I would certainly commend it to the house, so to speak.
Yeah, that's right. I'm actually, as I speak to you, Dave, because I always listen very intently to what you're saying.
Sit down with a straight face, mate.
I've got this book which I think came out. Citroen gave it away to motoring journalists anyway, and it's called Dates, and it's basically a colour book with all the significant Citroens from the year dot to 2001 when the C5 came out, which is slightly more problematic than a BX, because now I'm looking at pictures and old advertising, and you would want one. And it says here, 1982, the BX, a mass market vehicle designed to win new customers. And I suppose that's what it actually did. And got pictures of it being built and everything. And it used to have a plastic bonnet as well, didn't it? I think maybe a plastic tailgate. I don't know.
Yeah, there was even a Group B version you could buy.
Really? Goodness me.
Was it called? Was it the BX 4TC or something? To be honest, it's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
A lot of Group B cars are, though. The Lancia Delta went from a really nice looking little car.
Yeah.
In Group B form, it's pretty hideous, very fast.
Yeah.
And the BX, sadly, was never that quick in Group B form. but it's no better looking than the Delta. I mean, the only car I think, a couple of Group B cars looked okay. 205, not a bad looking car in Group B form. The 037 Lancia and I think the RS200. But there were plenty of Group B cars did not look great, and the BX was one of them. But it's a very rare car. You can buy them if you can find one, but be prepared to spend a lot of money for one of those.
Yeah.
But they did have some competition pedigree, so we can say that much as well.
So yeah, basically it's save the BX.
Absolutely, yeah.
Never mind save the whale, save the BX.
Oh, save Wales too. No, I mean obviously
save Wales. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've got nothing against anybody who lives there, but you know.
I knew you were going there. I knew he was going there. That's it.
That's why I had to hurry up there, because I thought David would say that.
I was going to actually. Really? That's it. Why don't we save Wales, and the BX? We can do all of them.
We can do, can't we?
Because they're all good things. And of course, if you like rugby as I do, there was probably no finer atmosphere in rugby than going to, I think it's now called the Principality Stadium, and listen to 70,000 Welsh people belt out Land of My Fathers. That is awesome. It really is. So absolutely, let's see. We'll just throw Wales into the mix too. Save Wales too. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. We hope you join us next week for the 47th episode of Bangers. Is it? No, this is the 47th. Next week's the 48th. Yeah, we're getting close to 50.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, that's it. It's falling apart at the seams now, James.
Well, it is pretty much, isn't it? But there you go. But we're motoring purposefully into the 1980s, and that has to be a good thing.
Absolutely, that's it. Let's hope they come up with some new inventions like heated rear windows, etc. for us. In the meantime, James is just off to meet some Hammer horror actresses who are all very much younger than they were in 2022, we believe.
Oh yeah, they'd be about right, wouldn't they? I suppose. It'd be the correct age.
The correct age. It's not so much lock up your daughters as lock up your Hammer horror actresses.
Absolutely.
Cheerio.
Yeah. Bye-bye, everybody.